Hey, well, these are the ruins that have been excavated from Qumran up till now. Some have been built up, but as you see from the start back there, you have a ritual immersion pool, which I can mention more about as we proceed here. Another ritual immersion pool with steps. Here is a huge cylindrical cistern that must have held thousands of gallons of water. And as we go along here, we'll see cistern after cistern. The cisterns were the raison d'etre of this community. Here, for instance, are more water channels. There's another huge cistern with steps. And probably the biggest cistern of all is, I think you'll see it right over here anyway. But the point of the water, and this is what's so amazing in a dry climate like this, is that you have the waterfall up on the mountain up there, where you can see its dry outlines, and that hardly ever runs water, but several times a year, suddenly you get a huge flood from the Bethlehem Plain. The water comes rolling down through the water channels, which are carved by hand through those rocks over there, dammed up there, and slowly led down through this water channel here and stored in these cisterns. So the cisterns, the complicated water channel, the aqueduct as it is specified here, are the raison d'etre of this community. Now here is a very huge water cistern or bathing pool. As you see, it has steps in it, and some of the smaller ones have the outline of what was called a Jewish mikveh. That would be an actual Jewish immersion bath. So this is certainly, there are too many cisterns here. That's the big cistern I was talking about there, right behind you. You see it's a huge, huge cistern of vast dimensions. This is very bizarre in a dry area like this. We have to admit that this is what we would normally call in Christian apocryphal literature, or the literature of the church fathers about the sects. This is a daily bathing group, a Homero-Baptist group. If you want to call them Essenes, some might want to call them Ebionites, the poor, the name of James's community. Some might want to call them Nazareans, after what we think of Jesus Christ, or John the Baptist followers. But whatever we have here, we have a bathing community in a very odd place. It's been my question sometimes what they did in that dry year, whether they were able to fill these cisterns enough to get enough water to do these bathing activities in an annual basis. I think sometimes this was an uninhabitable place. But on the whole, these installations are big enough and impressive enough to allow us to imagine a really functioning daily bathing community, people bathing in the morning when they got up in a ritual manner, and after any kind of impurity. Behind you there, I'll start here now. Behind you there is what has been argued over a lot. That, as you see, is a very sturdy bastion-like tower. And the question has been, is it just a lookout tower? Is it just the center of the community for looking around, which is, this community, as you see, is very strategically located. You look down the road here, and you can see the whole way down towards the oasis of En-Gedi, and further the famous stronghold of Masada, the road along going south, the Dead Sea, and to the north, the Jericho Plain. But what about this tower here? Was it just to look out? There's been a huge argument about this, mostly led by Professor Norman Golb of the University of Chicago. And Professor Golb's point was that this was a defense tower. Others argued with him. The peaceful Essene people said, what do they need a defense tower? These are peaceful Essenes contemplating the meaning of God in a retiring, anchorite way in the wilderness. I think, on the whole, Professor Golb's got the better of the point. That looks tough enough to be a defensive tower. One last point I would like to point out, the California State University Long Beach Judean Desert Exploration Project started out here under my tutelage around 1987. And we started just by doing surveys, and we were the first to bring a radar ground scan to this area, which we are now continuing in here in 2004, 12 to 14 years later, because of bureaucratic and other sorts of difficulties that emerged in the meantime. But we found that this is not complete, that in that area over there is a very large network of more underground waterworks of different kinds. And we found signatures with the radar past where those rocks are and near where those people are sitting under the awning there of a lot more ruins. We also did a radar ground scan under the tower or around the tower, and we found indications of some sort of circular well, some kind of stone object with a circular signature that had not been uncovered. And as you see, 14 years later, because of the bureaucratic competition and intricacies of internecine strife that goes on over these projects, it's still not touched. Is that all right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to... Don't bother with that sign. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, okay. Ready? Uh-huh. Okay, what you see before you is a typical immersion pool. It's a quasi-cistern, but you see it has steps. Steps not only for cleansing, but also steps for people to go down in it and immerse themselves in a ritual purification manner. And if you look at the documents, particularly the community rule, you'll see that this was something that was required of the community members on a daily basis. That's why we called groups like this, and they weren't just here, they were all across northern Syria into northern Iraq, down into southern Iraq. There's, even today, in southern Iraq, a group functioning called Mandans. Saddam Hussein wiped them out. They were down in the marshes, and they still wore white linen clothes like priests. They called themselves Nazariah or Nazareans. The Arabs called them the Subba of the marshes. Subba means bathing, and they were ritual daily bathers following John the Baptist to the very day, the 21st century in southern Iraq. So we had these bathing groups all across the Fertile Crescent in this period, and these were daily bathers. And I think what we're calling Essenes here at Qumran are connected to this whole movement of ritual purification going on from the Dead Sea here in Palestine all the way across northern Iraq down to southern Iraq, finally in the Subba of the marshes. Things like Manichaeism also grew out of this, and out of Manichaeism, Christianity grew out of this for sure. Manichaeism grew out of this, and out of Manichaeism grew Islam.
Manichaeism being?
A missing link. Well, Mani was